This presentation of Marshall Rosenberg, entitled Needs and Empathy, is part of the Corona 2000 recording series.
Marshall, are you right now interested in hearing what's alive for me on this? Could I?
If I say no, we would be into my session on rejection.
You got that right. So, okay, I want to.
So I will. I will be glad to hear you.
I am seeing a differentiation between universal needs and personal needs. Universal needs are just that, and personal needs have a specificity to them. And that when we are offering empathy, if we make the switch between what would be a universal need versus a personal need, then to me there's a breach of empathy. For example, in this came actually in a group that I was with Liz. Let's say, for example, that somebody says, I just wish my husband would get it. He just doesn't get it. So I would reflect, so you're feeling so frustrated because you really want him to understand, as opposed to because you're needing understanding globally. Is not because then the person would say, I don't need understanding. I mean, I get understanding from other people. I want him to get it.
Yes, she's addicted to a request. She's getting her request mixed up with a need, which many people do.
Right, but in empathy, in my mind, unless I don't make the bridge until I'm in honesty. And in honesty, I could educate. But in empathy, I would just reflect what I'm hearing from her perspective. Because my fear is that there would be a bridge of...
In empathy, you would connect with what her feelings and needs are. What you would say, you might want to say that. But it would be very important for you, not in your thinking, to join her in that.
Not in my thinking, no. Not in my thinking.
In the empathy, you connect only with her feeling and need. But now, of course, we all know that paraphrasing, what you say out loud is not empathy.
So then, if I wanted to actually capture her meaning more fully, would I say, you're really needing understanding, are you really, and you're wishing that he would provide it for you? Or how would I capture more fully the fact that...
You're really needing understanding and would like your husband to give it to you. I would separate the need from the preference.
Okay.
Because one of the worst things that people can do to themselves is mix up needs and preferences. That takes a world which is so abundant and beautiful and shrinks it immediately into a dependence on a specific person taking a specific action. You talk about miserable consequences. That almost guarantees the other person cannot enjoy giving. To have a person's need dependent on your availability. So that almost guarantees the other person's going to hear it as a demand, and even if they give you what you want, you're going to pay for it.
Especially when the preference is very strong.
The stronger the preference, the less likely you are to get it. Yeah. Unless you can keep the preference separate and not think of it as the need. To be clear, our needs can be satisfied in many different ways. And whenever we trick ourselves into thinking they can only be met by a specific person, we almost guarantee we won't get the need met. Susan, could you repeat what you said earlier today about needs of, you said two kinds of needs, and that'll help me get clear what I want to say. About the domination structure.
Yeah, right. So we come off a construct of the dominator system as one life alienating system, and the partnership or mutual respected needs system as a life giving system. And I've been working with a lot of interest in trying to differentiate needs which arise from the old dominator paradigm, in which we're working off of hierarchical structures, and basically our survival is related to getting approval, liking, so that we get the rewards of that system.
That's
more than you want?
More than I want.
Okay.
I got it now.
Yeah, and the other one being intrinsic.
What I wanted you to change is not to say the needs that we're taught by the domination system. I'd like you to call that misrecognition of needs.
Okay.
Because what the domination system teaches us is not certain needs, but it takes a natural energy, a life energy, that I don't know a quicker way of connecting to this divine life energy than this process that I refer to as needs. When we're in touch with that, fully in touch with that, we imagine how to get these needs met, life-serving actions. See, all life-serving actions. So, when we're fully in touch with our needs, nature puts into our head images of how to meet the needs. But education in domination cultures blocks this natural process and turns our consciousness of the need into a misrecognition of a need.
I can't see very well.
It's not I just quickly did this drawing this morning, so I'm sure Holly will come up with a much better one by noon for presenting. I do the starters, and Holly puts it into form that people can see.
Is that a jackal, though? Or a giraffe? Or what is...
Now the one thing I do draw beautifully is jackals, and she cannot tell the difference. I see where I've confused you with this. So this is just what I meant to say, that the education from the domination structure plays heavily on needs and distorts them through the education into what Michael Lerner
This presentation
calls
of
misrecognition. Misrecognition. I think this is a very important concept in his book, Spiritual Matters. Misrecognition, to really understand how the domination culture functions.
What was that name again?
Michael Lerner, Lerner, Spirit Matters. So let's quickly define the differences between how I use the term needs, preferences, wishes, requests. I say preferences, wishes, requests, strategies are all this.
Can you say that again? Preferences?
Preferences, needs, strategies all refer to what actions do we take to serve life.
You have needs and not less. You probably didn't mean to.
Yeah, you just said needs.
Preferences, wishes, requests, strategies. All of those words I would usually refer to, at least in English, I would say they mostly refer to what I call life-serving actions. Now, the basic difference that I present in every workshop is a quick handle on how to separate these things. Is a need contains no reference to a specific person taking a specific action.
Can you say that again?
A need contains no reference to a specific person taking a specific action. Now, where this gets confusing is to see the difference between what I just said. A need contains no reference to a specific person taking a specific action. There are times in English when we would bring another person into the need, but it's not in the form of them taking a specific action. It's we have a need for their well-being in some way. See.
What was the verb you used in there? I think requires? No, contains.
A need does not involve a specific person, no reference to a specific person taking a specific action. So when we say, I have a need for you to understand me, that's not, the action isn't too clear there, but it's still thinking that I need this specific person to do something. So it's not a need. It's got a need mixed up with a request. Yes, understanding is a need for understanding. But we don't have a need for this person to do anything about it. So that's a mixture of the two.
Difference between strategy and request.
I use them the same.
So if I'm empathizing with someone and I'm trying to do the distinction and they're really attached to, for instance, my child is the one who's going to do this to make me happy, instead of trying to educate them at a point, and that
But now
point,
you're
I want
mixing up
something else.
empathy with paraphrasing. Empathy, do not think what you say is empathy. As soon as you think what you say is empathy, we're off target.
I'm not following you still.
Empathy is where we connect our attention, our consciousness. It's not what we say out loud.
So you're saying I don't have to say it out loud, but just that I keep my attention at it.
I'm saying what I define empathy is our connection with what's alive in this person at this moment.
So what is alive in the person when they're attached to the
best I know how to what's
strategy?
alive in it, what's alive in them is being misrecognized by the two things which get us into trouble. Our thinking, this teaches us a certain way of thinking. And the thinking which comes from this leads to self-defeating actions. So, the problem is actions, requests, strategies distorted by our thinking. The thinking leads to misrecognition of the needs and to strategies that are self-defeating.
I think I'm following that. What I'm asking for is in the moment when they are seemingly attached to a particular strategy, what can I do to keep...
Don't go there.
No, even in my mind, to see the light in them.
You hear their present feelings and needs.
And what is the need?
You connect with that.
I'm not.
It might be a different need, different times. I mean, it probably is. One thing I take from what you're saying, the more tightly they're attached to it, the more energy there is around that need, the more desperately they're wanting it. So it's more about the quality of the need than which need.
I was thinking it was some other need was coming into play. It's what I was thinking, and I wanted to identify that other need. But
you go with whatever need you guess is there at the moment. Now, a need, as I define it, is universal. All needs are universal. Anyone in the world has the same needs. So you won't see anything strange, whether it's a man or a woman, regardless of religion, regardless of level of education. All human beings are created out of the same energy. They have the same needs. But the cultures that we are in either teach us to think in need language and to stay conscious of what serves needs, or some cultures, we call domination cultures, teach us a way of thinking that serve the structure, not life. So, and perhaps the most significant one of these, which I'll be talking about largely tomorrow in my sessions, is I guess all of you know by now, I consider the most important human need, the need to contribute to life, that's my language, the need to enrich life, contribute to life, make life wonderful for ourselves and others, which Viktor Frankl calls man's search for meaning. This is probably the most important human need of all. And life-serving, domination cultures, jackal cultures, really work on this and translate and transfer that very life-serving need into tricking people into misrecognizing this as a need for money, status, approval, let's see. So, our whole education is designed because that need, people cannot act as a slave when they're really in touch with this, you see. So to make us slaves of culture, domination structures, we have been educated to get these other things as the good life. That takes a powerful education to make us so stupid.
I'm still having a question about what Jananthi was saying, and I was wondering if you could give us an example of how do you empathize with someone who is extremely attached to their preference of getting
Okay.
that need met. So
They're attached to what?
I need him to love me. Great.
Okay, I hear you have a need for love that isn't getting met.
No, but I really need him.
I didn't say I
need
said that
him.
out loud. I just hear your need for love isn't getting met. Empathy is not what we say.
Okay, so what might you say?
Nothing.
You would say you'd rather say nothing.
I might say nothing. At times I might say, so you think you need him to love you.
So you call it the thought.
You think you need him to love you.
Marshall.
And I'd say no, I don't think. I feel that.
So you strongly want that. You strongly want him to act in a way that will meet your need for love. Or if the person is addicted to me saying the words, I'll say it, because that has nothing to do with empathy. I don't go there. Example, I was working with some street gang members that had been arrested for violent behavior. And they were a little skeptical. They were forced by the judge to spend time with me. So they were underwhelmed at the prospect of having to study with me. And so I said, I'm glad to have some time to share some communication skills. I got no further out of my mouth than communication skills. And one of them said, communication skills? So you're surrounded on a street corner, and you think, and you know, you got 3 members from another gang surrounding you, and one of them has got a gun, and you're going to communicate shit. So I said, are you feeling fearful of under those? I ain't afraid of anything, man. So you want me to know life can be dangerous in your community. You got that right, man. So I'll use whatever words, but I was still hearing that he was feeling strong feelings and had a need for some understanding of what could happen in his community. So whatever words I use is not as important as where am I connected. The words are not empathy. The connection is the empathy. When this person feels that I'm connected at this level, that's empathy. Not when I think I'm giving them empathy. When this person feels the connection at this level, whatever words get me there, I'll use. But where I put my attention is just there. The words I use may be another thing.
So in an empathic response, not just the empathy, assuming that you're already in empathic connection, but that you want to provide an empathic response, you may use the words that the person is expressing, even if your consciousness is clear about the difference. Am I hearing this correctly, Marshall, or not?
Roughly, but there's some things that I try never to reflect because I think it just hurts the other person to hear any verbal reflection. For example, any connection of forces outside of themselves to their feelings. So, you know, my husband really hurt me when he left me. So I won't say, so you're feeling hurt because your husband left you. You see. So I don't want to reflect back any language or, you know, these damn elections are the most farcical thing I've ever seen. So you're annoyed by the elections. No, I don't. I try never to connect, even verbally, a person's pain to forces outside themselves. If I'm going to connect with the pain, immediately to a need.
How often do you connect the pain to people's thinking? How often do you say it that way versus just going straight to the meaning?
I'm not sure what you mean, John. When would I ever go to their thinking? I really try never to hear what another person thinks. I just do not want to live in a world of thought. So I try never to hear what a person thinks.
When you're giving empathy.
In life, generally, I try never hear what a person thinks. I enjoy life much more when I never hear what a person thinks.
So not that the thinking might be causing the suffering. You wouldn't go there. That the thinking would be creating the suffering. You don't reflect that very often.
I hear the need behind the
Just
thinking.
go for the need.
That thinking has gotten enough airspace in the last 5,000 years. Now, I do want to say, I do think that some thoughts I listen to when they follow my needs, when I've expressed a need and my need, so I never, let me change my statement to only express thoughts when you're sure you have first made clear to the other person what need of yours is being met by your thought.
Example?
If I said to you, I really think the media is, the media in the United States is one of the most dangerous phenomenon I've seen in all of my studies of history.
Not only the United States.
Now, that would be my thought, you see. The need. I'm really in pain about the media in the United States and need some empathy. I really think that it is the most dangerous phenomena in the United States, in history. So there, I need empathy. That's really where I'm coming from. So then my thoughts come alive. You see that the thoughts are in the service of needs. But the thoughts that I'm telling you that I try never to go to are those disconnected from needs. I try to go to the needs. What needs are these thoughts serving? The thoughts cut off from the needs are dead.
I'm hearing you translate.
I guess what the need is behind the thoughts, yes.
Marshall, is that the same as saying da 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 because is my need the because? I'm really upset about the media. I'm really concerned about the media because I'm afraid that it's doing blah blah blah. Would it be the because?
Because I'm afraid that, no, that starts getting into a thought. Because I have a need. The more I can express the thought as a need, the more connected to life I am, the more likely I am to get the need met.
So would you retranslate what I said?
Say it again and I'll translate it.
I'm really upset about the media in this country because I'm afraid it's corrupting blah, blah, blah.
Because you really have a need for clarity and a need for integrity in what you hear.
Okay, then what if I say, because I have a need for integrity and clarity?
Yes, that's coming from your need. Not making an analysis of the media.
Could you give us some examples of translating preferences or strategies into needs?
You mean that we don't want to translate strategies into needs?
Well, if someone's presenting really a strategy as if it's a need, how would you translate that? Are you making?
Yes, I have a need. Well, here's a pure confusion of strategy and preference, not mixing them together, but just I have a need for you to spend time with me. Let's see. Now, I want to find the need out behind that. Does this person have a need for affection and closeness, or a misrecognition of a need to punish? I want to know. I want to know what is the need behind that before I agree to spend any time with this rascal. Okay, so that's a pure confusion of need and request. But then there's the more dangerous thing. I have a need for closeness with you. Now we've mixed up the need and the preference. It's not just it's a confusion of the preference and the need are mixed together. Yes.
So I would like to try in voicing needs to not have an object after a need. Try not to do that. So there would be no you, he, her.
Except in the sense, I have a need for your well-being.
Okay.
Because see, if we really have an abstract consciousness of what the interdependence, any need that we have for ourselves, we really have for everybody in the world. If we're really conscious. So it's not just that I have a need for food and nurturance. I have a need for your food and nurture, for you to have nurturance. And it's all one, really. We're all one. Our well-being is one. But in the language, it's pretty abstract. So I would say I have a need at this moment for your well-being. It's really my well-being. You can't separate it.
So if I were going to translate your confusion of preference and need in the statement of I need to connect with you, it would be I'm really having a strong need for connection, and I would enjoy doing that with you.
And what you want? What's your request?
Would you meet me for coffee?
Yes. Okay. Now, I'd like to say one other thing about needs, and that is, I've talked to one group already that I spent some time with on this, but what makes very difficult, even when we are clear about these differences, to put words to needs is really impossible. Is that clear? Needs are ascriptive, not descriptive.
Can you say that again?
Needs are ascriptive, not descriptive.
What does ascriptive mean?
Okay, I'll try to make it clear for you. We have defined pretty well as a culture, I think, so we can get just about 100% reliability on whether the color you're wearing is red or black. There's still some, in some areas, some vagueness, but for the most part, where we have pretty clear, agreed upon mutual ways of defining certain things that we observe. It's even here, it's pretty vague, but sometimes is this person running or loping, you see. But for the most part, we call these descriptions, observations. You see, you have pretty good reliability between people on what the color is, whether was she wearing blue jeans or a skirt. That's descriptive language. But was that outfit she was wearing attractive or not? That's ascriptive, subjective. Now, let me confuse you just a little bit further for a moment, and then I hope I can bring it together. So, ascriptive, the semanticists warn us about words. Be conscious that the map is never the territory. Be clear that when you make an ascription, you use words, that is not the territory. The map is never the territory. So that's why it's so important to separate observation and evaluation. You don't say, that is attractive. No. I have words called attractive I would put to this. This is my ascription of meaning to this. This is my analysis, my interpretation. That needs are not descriptive. It's like a painting. I try to create, this is so beautiful. This is similar to why the Jews do not like to use the word God. You see, they don't like to pronounce it or print it. You don't want to cheapen it by something that you think you can put a word on. Do not mistake the map for the territory. It's horrible to take something so beautiful and put an ugly word on it. So how do you communicate, you see? So you have a reverence for this, and the Jews show the reverence by not liking to print it even. You say G-D or something, but to make reference, but you want to be sure that you don't cheapen the beauty of it with the word, to think the word is that. So all we can do with needs, they're too beautiful. They're part of this divine energy of the universe. They're too beautiful to put words on. So we just have to accept the limitations of language, that we're never going to really describe the beauty of what's alive in us. But we do the best we can with the words. That's ascriptive. You see, so that's why we can all have different ways of different words to put on it. So the words I use for myself to describe my needs are usually not very likely to be what I use with other people. It's like when I speak English in Europe and in Africa and other places, I speak translator English. It's not the language that I am using usually.
Can you give an example that inside you, that process?
Of a need?
How you translate differently for yourself than for someone else?
Okay, for myself, I can use the word very often. Like I was trying to figure out why in some of the remembering experiences, I have a part of me, a need that gets tangled like with everybody having to do the same exercise at the same time. I have a kind of something goes on in me, and for myself, it touches to say my need for autonomy. But if I'm talking to a 5-year-old, I don't say, is your need for autonomy being threatened? I might say, so you have a need to choose for yourself when you do something. Okay? It's playing with the language that'll connect us at this beautiful level as best I can. I just accept the very limitations of language. So when we're, in quotes, correcting people in workshops, it's mainly to not get this mixed up with this, and not get these things mixed up with this. But the actual words to put on there, you have to experiment until you find words that work for you when you're speaking with yourself and connect you at this level with other people. But that's an art. We have to keep working at it. It's not like we can give a list of words that we can now say, okay, that's the word for this.
It's got a really important insight, which is that part of, I think, my problem with doing self-empathy has to do with struggling with the words. And it may be really more helpful for me to just be able to be with the feeling and not have to distract myself with the wording. That if I can use the wording to
just
clarify,
go with the feeling and the needs without worrying about the words.
Yes, that's
both.
what I'm saying, and that I could use words or language only as a way to get me closer to a feeling, but as long as it starts detracting from that process, I can throw it out the window, and that's really very, very helpful for me to get that insight, because I was stumped.
Now you got it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That when I'm doing self-empathy, I've noticed when we were doing this, even when you were giving me self-empathy, I was struggling with trying to make sense of the words that were coming at me, or with my own words, struggling with that effort to describe the feeling. And that was actually detracting from my ability to just be with the feeling and not have to be with the richness of the feeling. I mean, because words in some way for me do detract from, they in some way diminish the richness of a feeling. They rarely actually describe it fully. And so that process, I notice, in trying to find the perfect description was actually detracting from my ability to give myself empathy. And that I would like to, let me just finish this, Jorge, for 1 second. I would like to be able to use words in a way that help me clarify a feeling when necessary, but also to throw them out the window when I realize they're detracting from my ability to be with my feeling.
Now, the other aspect of that is that you might be telling yourself that you have to do something right. And that's why interpret was really present at that moment too. So we end up being present with something else, which is a self-jackling about not getting it and not doing it right. So I see two things there, and just wanted to.
Well, that's
point to
part
that.
of it. Is feeling like somehow focusing on the model, the NVC model, and missing the whole beauty of the underlying process. It's just crazy.
I used to try to make this clear to people by this. And it worked for about 80%, but for 20% it confused them more. So if you're the 20%, don't listen. But I said it this way.
You'll find out when you're confused.
But I said that there's really only been two people in history that have mastered the process that I refer to as giraffe or nonviolent communication. And neither of them said a word from birth till death.
Can you say that again?
I said there's only been two people in history that have ever really mastered this process. And neither of them said a word from birth until death. And that's, and then everybody says, who are they? And so the 20% said, who are they? And get stuck on that. And what I'm trying to say is don't mistake the process that I'm interested in with words. I'm not one of them. I'm becoming more and more one of them as I use fewer and fewer words.
This feels like a moment that I could bring up something that I think Jorge and I had been working on. And as much as I can recall, we were talking about a strategy of I need nurturing. I think I'll go get some chocolate. And what I wanted to check with you, Marshall, was I love wishes and wants and dreams leading up to the need. Sometimes my experience is that people don't come right to the need. And so I like to know if you would, if this would fall into what you would enjoy. I wish I could have chocolate anytime I wish I could just think of chocolate and have it appear. I have a need for nurturing. I think I'll go see if anybody has any. So that would be like the wish, the need, and the strategy. How do you relate to that?
I'm confused. I don't see what you're getting at.
I'm trying to distinguish between a wish and a strategy.
For me, they're the same. It's just a future imagination of what the strategy might be, what it might look like.
So a wish would be a future imagination of what a strategy might look like.
And I would say when I see the person going out to the kitchen or going to get the food, I would say before you get to that strategy, what's your need? Well, I have a need to eat something. No, that's a strategy. What's your need? Well, I don't know what I need, but just very often it makes me feel better to eat that. So very often people use strategies that have worked and reduced some anxiety or something, but they're not clear what the need is, but it does give them a little bit of release. So they end up with strategies that a little bit calm them down, feel better, but don't meet their basic need. So
I need food would only be one level of the need. It would just be.
So I ask very often with people that I've been who tell me they're concerned about their weight, could you tell me what need of yours is being met by eating right now? Are you hungry? Not really. So could you help me understand what the need is? Well, I thought if I ate something, I'd feel better. No, but that's a strategy that might leave you feel better. What's the need? They're not at all connected to what the need is. So we end up with what strategies we recall from the past maybe left us with some pleasure. Try to apply them and hope that they'll work without any consciousness of what the need is.
So would reducing stress be a strategy as well?
Reducing stress?
Yeah, you said, well,
I think we have a need for calm and peace, and so to meet that need for calm and peace, we might do things that meet that need. The problem is we might get the need met by certain actions, but it doesn't meet other needs for our health, for example. So then we have to find strategies that meet all of our needs.
Marshall, what about needs and values? Sometimes I find with people, if I say something like, so it's really, really important to you, really value this, it gets another kind of a flavor of something.
I think as we move up the ladder of needs from the more concrete physical needs to more abstract spiritual needs, at least in English, the word value seems to fit better for some people than the word needs, especially if they had a higher educational levels. But basically, I think they're all values and needs I use interchangeably. But I wouldn't think of saying I have a value for food at the moment. It'd be more a need. But maybe a value for respect. But I think the need comes closer to it. Well, have we confused it more or clarified what you had in mind by this time?
I'm actually very excited. I'm really wanting this great clarity, like real coherence as to this aspect of the model. And I'm very, very excited with that precision. And John was about to say something, then I have something to say, but
I'm also feeling very excited because I'm getting this hit of that we as human beings have been given this gift of something in here that, among other things, has allowed us to produce language, to interact with one another. And that when I heard you say about two people who never spoke a word from birth to death, I'm pretty sure my cat will fall in that category. But he doesn't have this gift. And I don't want to give up this gift to be in the process. So my excitement is of a pretty amorphous, but a vision of some possibility of getting to a place of being in that process without losing this. Whether that means we use language or not, I don't care.
Maybe, I don't know about that. Whether many of the cultures around the world that still exist, that have a process language, they don't confuse the word with the thing. They have a process language. Most of you, I guess, have heard me tell about my experience with the Orang Aslis, where my translator really told me before the session he was going to have a hell of a time translating if I used any use of the verb to be. Because he said we don't have it in our language. And I just stood and thought for a few moments, what would life be like if I had never been taught the verb to be? See? If you want to get more clarity on that, read in the research E prime. E prime. See, there have been a movement for about 50 years of people that have wanted to replace our language with an E prime language, a language in which there is no verb to be, a process language, you see. And I was just thinking when this person said that, of what would life be like? And then I said to him, but my God, how are you going to translate for me today if I want to insult people or call them names? I mean, how can I think of going through a day without insulting people? I said, for example, if I want to say to somebody, you're selfish, how would you translate it today? Oh, he said, Marshall, that will be very hard. Let me think for a moment. You see, we just don't think that way, he said. We just don't think that way, of what somebody is. So if you said you're selfish, I would say to the person, Marshall says that he sees you taking care of your needs, but not the needs of others. He would like you to take care of the needs of others as well as your own needs. Pure giraffe, you see. Pure giraffe. Then he looked at me, and I'll never forget the look on his face. He said, Marshall, why would you ever call a person a name? Well, I had to educate this poor savage. He's a very primitive man. I know he's primitive. You know how I know he's primitive? Because the name of their tribe, Orang Asli, is the name given to them by the surrounding culture. And it means primitive people. So, see, they are primitive people, so I had to educate him. I said, Well, you have to know what somebody is to know whether to punish them or reward them, you idiot. And I left off the idiot, but, I was kind. And then he looked, and this concept of punishment, you see, is one they don't have in their culture. And so he said, Marshall, if you have a plant that isn't growing as you would like, do you punish it?
You pull it up and say, be gone.
But if you want it to live, do you punish it?
Why do you?
Yeah. It's why would they ask a jackal speaking person like myself to teach them their natural language? It's a sad, sad story. They were living quite happily for generations in the jungle, in trees, and logging interests were destroying their habitat. And their one senator for 60,000 people heard of my work in Malaysia and asked while I was there if I would teach them how to speak giraffe with jackal-speaking people. He said, we have other consultants offering us free services. They're willing to show us how to use guns to get our land back.
Spell that tribal name?
Orang, O-R-A-N-G, which is the name, orangutan, people. Asli, A-S, sometimes it's spelled A-S-L-I, sometimes A-S-I-L-I, but Orang Asli.
You said that E prime?
E prime is this movement.
E, the letter E?
Yeah, E dash prime is a language in which no verb to be. They wanted.
It's also the title of a book.
It's a book about this title. Yeah.
Marsha, I'd like to hear some of your comments about what I'm going to say. I've been experimenting with switching the feeling and the need that I say when I'm self-empathizing, and seeing that it's actually a request. For instance, I'd say, well, maybe I have a need for sexual expression. And then I found out, no, I was using, when I really checked honestly with myself, that was a strategy for connection. And another example is how much, it's not so much that I wanted a particular thing, like that someone would be there to comfort me. I wanted to feel confident of that. And then I settled on and had the best feeling that confidence was my need. Just the need to feel confident that I could get this other need met. Not to actually have it, though. I'd like to hear your take on what I just said there.
Well, in response to the first part about a need for sex, I think sex is somewhat like chocolate. It's a strategy.
Endorphins by any means.
Pardon?
Endorphins by any means.
Yes, you got it. So I think both sex and chocolate are strategies that can meet maybe several different needs. So it would really be helpful to get clear which of the needs we're really talking about at that moment and not get it mixed up with that specific strategy.
So if I'm hearing you clearly, most often in your experience, what I see written on our sheets, sexual expression, is truly a strategy.
I think if we really work hard at getting a descriptive language, we'll come up with almost every word on that sheet for needs. We'll probably come up with much better words, and maybe we'll see there's really 2 or 3 needs mixed in with the words on the sheet. That's a very primitive outline of needs.
And what came up for you when I said the first thing where I actually described the feeling, feeling confident? Is that not
feeling
really
confident?
Is that not a feeling?
That's a feeling, a feeling of confidence. But you also used it as a need later on. You said I had.
That's my experience.
I have a need, and I think we could probably find better words for that than a need for confidence. Probably you could find better words for it, but don't mix it up with the feeling.
If I'm hearing you correctly, explore further and see what's behind me wanting confidence.
Yeah, I think, and the ultimate authority, I think, on whether we're really in touch with the need, our body will tell us. Our body will tell us when we really get closer to what the need is. It's my best authority on what, at the moment, are the best language I can use. My body tells me.
So I've noticed a great body shift or shift in my body when I've gone ahead and said that to myself.
Then it's
But
getting closer to it, and if it works for you, then you might just keep using that. But
I'm willing to continue to explore naturally, but I just want your input on that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Is poetry one of the ways to get at or expressing needs?
It's kind of an art form, so whichever words really resonate to life, get you most connected to the life alive in you. Yes. But of course, the poetry that works for me, it may not at all connect the other person with what's alive in me. So, how to use a language that connects us both ways. Okay, we got about an hour to 45 minutes to go to other sessions. I'll work on the rejection theme. And
As half the group leaves, you'll work on rejection.
but my greatest exercise in this rejection was not as bad as in Malung, Sweden, when I was with 80 teachers in Malung, Sweden, and I said something, and all 80 of them got up and walked out.
What did you say? You said,
I was standing there thinking, my God, I didn't think it was that controversial. And then the last man that was going out the door, he looked back and said, come on, it's a fire drill.
This concludes our presentation. If you'd like to obtain additional recordings of Marshall Rosenberg or learn more about nonviolent communication, please call the Center for Nonviolent Communication in La Crescenta, California at 1-818-957-9393 or go to the center's website at www.cmvc.org.